Hello and welcome. You're watching View on World is One. My name is Mohammed Saleh, and let's start this broadcast by taking a quick look as to what is making headlines at this hour. Now, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says that he spoke with President Donald Trump and has discussed air defenses and has agreed to work on increasing capabilities to defend the Ukrainian skies. The Kremlin says that it is currently unable to achieve its goals on the Ukraine conflict through diplomatic means and says that it will continue with its special operation until that is possible. The United Nations nuclear watchdog inspectors have left Iran, according to the agency, which has called for the resumption of its indispensable monitoring after the Iranian Republic officially suspended its cooperation. Houthi supporters demonstrate in Sana'a to reject comments by the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz that Yemen will be treated like Tehran. His comments were made in an apparent reference to the recent 12-day war between Iran and Israel. The American President Donald Trump will sign his flagship tax and spending bill in a pomp-laden Independence Day ceremony featuring fireworks and a flypast by the type of stealth bombers that were used by the Americans to bomb Iran, which effectively means the B-2 stealth bombers. When Russia becomes the first country to officially recognize its rule, multiple other states, including China and Pakistan, have accepted Taliban ambassadors in their capitals but have still not officially recognized the Taliban government in Kabul. A rare blanket of heavy snow covers parts of northeastern Turkey as the rest of the country swelters in some searing heat, with firefighters battling wildfires. And after a mega layoff of almost 9,000 employees globally, Microsoft has officially ended its direct operations in Pakistan after 25 years of presence in the country.
People remain missing right now after multiple explosions went off in a pyrotechnics company in Northern California. Those fireworks went off after a fire broke out there. Firefighters say that right now it is just too dangerous to send any kind of crews in to fight the flames, let alone look for those missing people. Loved ones now sharing their pain.
I keep looking down there to see if, hopefully you see somebody walking, some kind of warning. I don't know. I'm stuck right now.
Well, the firefighters are now working to come up with some kind of a plan of attack for when they are able to safely enter the site.
happened very quickly over a very short amount of time that could not be predicted, even with the radar. Our team constantly reviews radar, constantly has NWS, or National Weather Service messages. We send them out on a regular basis and we communicate effectively. This is not like a tornado where you can have a siren. This is not like a hurricane where you're planning weeks in advance. You know, it hit hard, and things like this happen in a very strategic, very isolated area. And when those two things converged, you had what happened today. So this happened within less than a 2-hour span, very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Climate change is intensifying water scarcity across Africa while also exacerbating droughts. Despite a brief uptick in rainfall across the continent, critical water shortages persist. The diminishing rainfall over the past year has triggered severe ecological, economic and humanitarian impacts. This trend is projected to continue.
We had very beautiful forests, very beautiful wetlands, but because of several pressures, these areas were all degraded. By the time I grew up, at least I saw there was already cane, but the swamps were intact, the rivers were intact. We used to have rain washers every day at 2. At such a time we should be having rain, but and then there was to be more rain. You'd find we have very few months of no rain.
Africa's average surface temperatures have risen steadily across all regions, with southern Africa experiencing the highest increases. Rainfall patterns are becoming increasingly unpredictable, with the Sahel experiencing more rainfall recently, while Central and Southern Africa are facing significant drying trends.
The climate crisis is a human rights crisis. Rising temperatures, rising seas, floods, droughts, and wildfires threaten our rights to life, to health, to a clean, healthy and sustainable environment, and much more. And the heat wave that we are currently experiencing indeed leads us to the adaptability measures that are absolutely necessary, because otherwise, again, rights would be impacted as a result.
Sea levels along Africa's coast have risen to approximately 20 centimeters since 1900 and are projected to increase by an additional 35 to 50 centimeters by 2050, posing a threat to coastal communities. Extreme weather events, including heat waves, droughts and floods, have increased. This has all been blamed on the continuous use of fossil fuels.
We need to move away from fossil fuels much faster and completely if we want to avoid ever more extreme events that also will reach the limits of what societies are able to adapt to, and not get distracted by discussions of whether it's too late to do this, if not, or by focusing on things like carbon dioxide removal, which will not work if we do not have the transition away from fossil fuels.
Central, Northwest and Northeast Africa face worsening conditions due to ongoing droughts, extreme heat and above average temperatures. These climate-driven factors threaten agriculture ecosystems and hydropowers, increasing the region's vulnerability to the climate crisis.
A magnitude 5.5 earthquake has struck Japan's southwestern prefecture of Kagoshima. The tremor reached a lower 6 on Japan's seismic intensity scale, which goes from 0 to 7. It is the largest of hundreds that have rocked the region for almost 2 weeks now. The quake struck at about 4:13 p.m. on Thursday. According to the meteorological agency officials, the epicenter was off the coast of the Tokara Islands. The depth was about 20 kilometers, but there was no threat of tsunami. There has been a marked increase in seismic activity around the island chain for nearly 2 weeks. More than 1,000 noticeable tremors have been recorded. The shock comes just a day after a magnitude 5.6 quake struck the same area. Officials say residents should stay on the alert and that the shaking could continue.
Giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power, Yahweh. Bahashum Yahushua, Bahashum Rachak, Kodash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopefully elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, wherever you may be. Shalom, Yeshua, Shalom. This will be super brief. I didn't necessarily need to speak on it exactly, but everything's according to the Most High's prophecy. So let's start with the scripture right here. Isaiah 34:16. Seek ye out the book of the Lord Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushua, and read. No one of these shall fail, meaning the prophecies. None shall want her mate, meaning any other books or whatever, so-called prophecies from other nations and stuff like that, from things that they serve false gods and idols, right? None of those things work. Only the scriptures, right? That's the truth. Because these are the words of the Heavenly Father, all right? It says, for my mouth it hath commanded, and his spirit it hath captured him. And the reason why I want to read that scripture first is because I posted it up a couple times now, and this is the probably about third time I've seen it. And so it's talking about this so-called, they call it the mega quake in Japan, but they also call it the manga quake because some person supposed to have drew in some manga, a prophecy of an earthquake. Well, the scriptures speak about earthquakes, but a manga is not going to predict that. All right, any earthquake is going to happen, and it just may happen in Japan, some mega quake, but it ain't because the manga presented that so-called prophecy. All right, it's because the Heavenly Father, all right, ordained that to be. All right, Isaiah 46:10, declaring the end from the beginning, saying that my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. All right, so we get this up here, Matthew 24. And ye shall hear wars and rumors of wars, and see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. All right, in order for the end to manifest itself, these prophecies have to happen of the end time prophecies, right? But the end is what? Not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, all right, in diverse places. All right, all these are the beginning of sorrows, and there's things happening all over the earth constantly. All right, it doesn't matter if they're weather related or people related. Things are happening all over, right? And going back up here where it says earthquakes, that has to do with earthquakes, has to do with actual earthquakes as well as volcanoes. All right, one just happens, on the Earth's surface, one that happens under the Earth's surface, okay? Because, you have the tectonic plates, pushing together or whatnot, all right? So you get the rumble in the Earth. Same thing happens with volcanoes. It's just under the Earth, and it kind of spills over to the surface, all right? But just to get to my point, though, all right, the prophecy, as a matter of fact, I think Peter said that, all right. No, we're probably getting on this one. It is right there, all right. I believe it's 1 Peter 1, if I'm correct, or 2 Peter 1. Okay, yep, 2 Peter 1. All right, let's get 19:20. 2 Peter 1 and 19. Knowing this first, that no prophecy of the scripture is of any private interpretation. Okay, meaning that's why we read Isaiah 34:16. Prophecies come out of the book of the Lord. Seek that and read. Not from some Japanese manga about a mega quake. Like I said, it may actually happen, but it ain't because the manga, all right, presented that idea. It's because the scriptures foretold these things. For the prophecy came not in old time, but by the will, in the old time, by the will of man, as we quoted Isaiah 46:10, right? My counsel shall stand, I will do all my pleasure. That's the will of the Heavenly Father, to all his pleasure. All right, for the prophecy came not in old time by the will of man, but holy men of the Most High spake as they were moved by the Holy Spirit. And those holy men are talking about the prophets. And the prophets do what? They prophesy, right? So we can prophesy about earthquakes and things of that nature because it's written in the scriptures, but not because some Japanese manga told us those things. So that's pretty much it. Got a lot of news to get through. So Lord willing, you edify to next night. That's what I'm going to say. Shalom.
A Canadian citizen arrested by ICE at her green card interview for being in the country illegally is desperate to get out of detention. She spent more than 25 years living in Southern California after driving through the San Diego border. Team 10 investigative reporter Austin Grabish has an exclusive interview with the mother of three and shows us the major regret her husband now has.
The only time I committed is to love this country, is to work hard and to provide for my kids.
Through tears, wearing an ICE-issued uniform, Cynthia Oliveira begs the Canadian government for help.
I really do need their help. I don't want to be in here. This is not right.
The mother of three is currently being held by ICE at this detention center in El Paso, Texas, and has no idea when she will be deported to Canada.
I'm so desperate. I've gone to 4 different facilities, and every single facility I've gone in, I've told them I'll pay for my own flight. I'll pay for it.
She says her nightmare started on June 13th when she went to her green card interview at the immigration office in Chatsworth.
You thought you were going to be getting your green card, but instead they arrested you. Did they trick you?
Yes, I honestly thought I was going for my interview, for my green card interview.
They said, look, she's getting deported immediately. We reinstated her expedited removal from 1999.
Cynthia's husband, Francisco, is a U.S. citizen. He says a couple of years ago, after submitting green card paperwork, he and his wife had to have a difficult talk with their kids.
So when we filed, we let the kids know, mom is considered an illegal alien, Canadian-born citizen, and we're going to be doing this process to try to make her legal.
It's a secret Cynthia kept for years. She says her parents brought her to the United States from Toronto when she was just a little girl.
The U.S. is my country, That's where I met my husband. That's where I went to high school, junior high, elementary. That's where I had my kids.
In 1999, she says immigration officers at the Buffalo border took her into secondary screening, discovered she had been living in the country illegally, and issued a removal order before turning her back to Canada. Months later, she says she drove across the San Diego border from Mexico.
They just waved me in. They didn't ask for my citizenship.
Cynthia says she spent the next 25 years trying to live the American dream, working in LA, paying taxes, and providing for her family.
You voted for Trump. How do you feel now?
Horrible. Horrible.
What did you vote for?
I voted for change, but I didn't vote for this change.
And like her husband, she too supported President Trump's promise to launch the largest deportation program of criminals in American history.
My wife is up until 18 days ago, was a strong believer in what was going to happen the next 4 years. But we feel totally blindsided, betrayed.
Team 10 searched federal and state court records and found no criminal charges against Cynthia.
And I've never committed no crime, not one.
Francisco says it makes no sense for taxpayers to foot the bill to keep his wife locked up in El Paso when she could be deported to Canada on her own dime. According to ICE's website, it costs roughly $152 a day to detain someone.
I will fly there myself. I will be waiting at whatever terminal to pay for a ticket. I will pay for an escort.
The Canadian government says it's aware of the situation, but claimed it can't intervene. Austin Grabish, Team 10.
Team 10 asked ICE for a comment on this story over a week ago. The agency did not provide information about Cynthia's detention or say why she isn't being allowed to pay for a flight to Canada.
This was the scene at Ottawa's International Airport Thursday morning. The terminal crawling with police officers, sniffer dogs, and hundreds of passengers left waiting.
There's cops everywhere, and we're like, what's happening? People are piling up. They just kept saying security threat.
More specifically, a bomb threat. NAV Canada, which oversees air traffic control, says early morning threats affected flights out of Ottawa, Montreal, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, and Vancouver. Staff were moved to safety while the agency and police swept the area. Passengers caught up in it all.
Do I have the opportunity even to leave right now because I don't feel safe here? And that was also going through my mind of I've got my 3 kids at home and now I'm sitting in an airport that has a bomb threat.
Ottawa airport officials say they announced updates to people in terminal, but this woman says there needed to be more efforts to notify people.
We get down through security, everything's fine until we look to find our gate and we see that the hallway to our gate's blocked off.
NAV Canada says operations are back to normal, but dozens of flights, including to Toronto and Halifax, Chicago, Fort Lauderdale, Washington, even Paris, were delayed or cancelled, leaving passengers in the lurch.
I'm probably around $500 to $600 just by not making my flight today.
Some people stuck at the Ottawa airport for hours longer than expected. Others unable to rebook their flights until days from now. And many not able to get any help at all with costs of meals and hotels.
The airline couldn't have done anything. So in these situations, they are not obligated to compensate the passengers financially.
And NAV Canada asking passengers to continue checking their flight status before they head to the airport in case of any further disruptions.
And Nicole, it's pretty interesting how quiet authorities are keeping about this investigation.
That's right. They're not saying much about this bomb threat because of security reasons, but Winnipeg RCMP did say that the airport there received a call at 6 a.m. saying there was a bomb in the air control tower. When they did a sweep, they found nothing, but the investigation into exactly what happened continues. NAV Canada working with both police and Transport Canada to find out what happened.
It's no secret that technology is transforming our lives, and now even what's in our glass. The magic of beer making is no longer just about hops and yeast, but about machine learning, algorithms, and data science. While we are in no way promoting drinking, alcohol in any form is bad for health. Researchers saying that brewers around the world are embracing artificial intelligence to craft smarter, tastier, even more personalized beers. The AI does not just follow rules. It learns, it picks up on subtle patterns, tweaks each batch to hit the flavor just right. But then can the likes of ChatGPT create a pint worth drinking is the question. Professor Kevin Westreppen, who led the research, says that AI could help tease apart the complex relationships involved in human aroma perception, could help tear apart the complex relationships involved in human aroma perception. Westreppen and his team of researchers analyzed the chemical makeup of 250 commercial Belgian beers of 22 different styles. And this includes fruit beers, blondes, among others, also non-alcoholic beers. The team constructed models based on machine learning, which is a form of AI, to predict how a beer would taste based on its composition. And they then use the results to enhance an existing commercial beer. The results from the tasting panel revealed the additions improved the ratings for both alcoholic as well as non-alcoholic beers. This across metrics, including sweetness, body, overall appreciation. Research says the biggest application of AI could be in changing non-alcoholic beers to make them better. From ancient tradition to artificial innovation, the beer world is getting a high-tech makeover, proving the perfect pint may just come from quartz. But beer lovers need not worry about technology disrupting this rich heritage. Researchers say the skill of brewers remains vital. The AI models predict the chemical changes that could optimize a beer, but it's still up to the brewers to make that happen, starting from the recipe and the brewing methods. Shifting focus now to the Arctic, where things have been heating up. In fact, it is the world's newest battleground. Untapped oil, gas, minerals, new shipping routes are up for grabs there. And now President Trump is rolling the dice with a $9 billion plan to stake claim in the Arctic. What's behind the move? Our next report taking a closer look at how Donald Trump wants to outpace Russia as well as China in this heated battle.
Welcome to Operation Nanook.
Arctic is roaring to life as the world's new flashpoint. Western warships slice through icy waters in combat drills. Russian bombers patrol the skies. Cold War-era bases are roaring back to life. China is quietly planting flags in science labs that double as listening posts. The changing geopolitics and geography is making Arctic the most sought-after region in the world. This isn't a climate story anymore, it's a battle for global dominance at the top of the world. Into this storm strides President Trump, unveiling a $9 billion Conquer Arctic plan that supercharges the U.S. Coast Guard with a fleet of cutting-edge icebreakers. These steel giants will slice through the thickest ice, opening new shipping lanes and securing untapped reserves of oil, gas, and rare minerals. As the polar ice recedes, the Arctic transforms from a frozen wasteland into the world's hottest geopolitical prize. But the Americans are not alone in their ambitions. Russia has deployed nuclear submarines beneath the ice, while Tu-95 bombers prowl the skies above. Moscow's military buildup is staggering new airfields. Radar stations now dot the Russian Arctic. China is also actively breaking the ice in Arctic. It is rapidly increasing its footprints driven by its economic and strategic interests. In response, NATO is now scrambling to counter Russia's formidable Arctic footprint. The alliance is actively calling for stronger Arctic defense capabilities, conducting exercises, and bolstering its presence in the region.
Maritime threats are mounting, that's for sure. To name but a few, Russia is militarizing the Arctic. And we are seeing an increasing activity of Russian submarines operating in that area.
We will invest in new submarines, aircraft, ships, armed vehicles, and artillery, as well as new radar, drones, and sensors to monitor the seafloor and the Arctic.
With the ice melting at unprecedented rates, the Arctic is transforming into a vast ocean, ice-covered regions rich with oil, gas, and strategic leverage. And while the world debates climate change, Trump is gearing up for what could be a Cold War in a warming zone.
Happy Independence Day. I want to talk about just how significant the largest infusion of border resources we are getting in the big, beautiful bill. Every border official I've ever talked to said there's three things you need to secure our nation: infrastructure, manpower, and technology. Let's break down the $100 billion, a huge $46.5 billion for border wall construction upgrades and the detection technology. While the numbers are lower than they've ever been, the wall is what works. Every Border Patrol official has told me that, and they're going to continue to build it. Now, you've also got to talk about why so many people were released under the Biden years. It's because they ran out of places to hold them. They told us we have nowhere to house them, so we have to release them. Well, we're talking about $45 billion for single adult detention in family residential centers. That's going to be for temporary places, kind of like Alcatraz we hear, where as ICE arrests the criminal migrant illegal aliens into the interior of the country, they'll have a place to put them as they make their way out of the country. You've got nearly $30 billion for hiring, training, and retention of ICE officers, technology, and transport. They are at a level now where if they get this resources, they can really move and ultimately get the more than 400,000 criminal illegal aliens we know are in our country. Finally, just over $4 billion for the hiring and training for Border Patrol agents and others. While numbers are down on that southern border, we still need people to walk the line there. $100 billion total. So to discuss it, nobody better than the acting ICE director, Todd Lyons. Mr. Director, happy 4th of July. Thank you for taking time. And I will just start, Todd, with getting your perspective on how significant this bill is and these resources will be for ICE.
Hey, Griff, thanks for having me. Yeah, and happy 4th of July to you and everybody on the staff. No, it's going to be great. I mean, when you think about how depleted ICE has been over the past 4 years, last administration totally minimized the work the men and women of ICE do every day. It really cut our resources. So you're seeing now, under this administration, President Trump has made a promise to the American people to make America safe again. And a key part of that is his immigration strategy. And what Secretary Noem has done with helping craft this bill, it's been amazing. Just like you said, the detention space alone is going to be huge for us. We saw so many individuals let into the country last time without due proper vetting. We know we have so many known gotaways, known suspected terrorists. This is going to give us the tools and resources now to have the infrastructure in place to go ahead and ensure that ICE is going out and being that viable law enforcement partner we are and going after all these public safety threats. And the one main thing, Griff, that you pointed out is the manpower and hiring. We've lost so many good men and women because they just didn't feel like they were law enforcement officers anymore. When you're just not allowed to do your job, it's very heartbreaking. So now we're going to have the opportunity to get men and women of ICE the backup they need. We're going to be able to retain these great individuals. So it's going to be a great win for the Department of Homeland Security.
Well, Mr. Director, it seems that morale is up. Our friend and my colleague in common, Bill Melugin, getting some reaction from some of your ICE officers saying things like this. Let's go. This is long overdue and will give us the resources to ramp it up and give the American people what they voted for. This ensures that ICE is the tip of the spear to make America safe again. You know, you really, and of course, the smiley face emoji, and then the last one there, this administration has been fighting nonstop to give the law enforcement agents in these dangerous sanctuary communities the tools we need to complete the mission. As you talk about giving your men and women what they need, Todd, you're facing a backlash the likes of which ICE has never seen, from agents being doxxed and assaults now on your ICE officers up nearly 700%, as you already have some California cities canceling their 4th of July events today to literally have a response to protect migrants from ICE raids. You see them here, LA County, Whittier, Bell Gardens, and Cudahy as well, just out of control. What are you saying to your rank and file? What are you saying to your team?
Well, you know, like you said, assaults are up to almost 700%, and that's totally unreal, and it's unacceptable. The men and women of ICE are out there doing a law enforcement mission. Never in my career or my lifetime would I think that we'd see people attacking law enforcement officers for arresting the worst of the worst. With that, what I have to say about these events being canceled, it's ludicrous. ICE isn't going out to events and arresting and rounding people up, right? What ICE is doing, and the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security, is keeping America safe this 4th of July. So what I can tell you is not only my agency, but all department agency components have been out there working with state and local officials to ensure that things like the sleeper cell threats, these known or suspected terrorists that came in, aren't going to affect our 4th of July weekend, and that Americans can go out and celebrate. So what we should be focused on is what the good work that the men and women of ICE are doing to protect this nation. You know, you guys have highlighted, Griff, what we've done with some of the high-threat countries. We arrested a former sniper from one of these high-risk countries. We arrested an Iranian that was tied to Hezbollah. We are out there ensuring that these people that were let in under the last administration aren't going to do us harm on a great day like July 4th.
You know, just in the last few seconds I've got, Todd, we're doing Proud American shout-outs all day. How proud are you of your men and women of ICE?
You know, it's such an honor of a lifetime to be able to lead the men and women of ICE. They are the bravest law enforcement officers out there today. They do great work, and I am so proud to be on here every day to explain the great work that they do for this country.
Well, you're doing a great job. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons, thank you for taking time and giving us your insight today. Have a happy 4th of July.
All right, going out now to the nation's capital with a live look here at the U.S. Capitol building. After a record-setting speech by House Democrat leader Representative Hakeem Jeffries, seemingly stalling the inevitable, the One Big Beautiful bill passes and is now on the way to get a signature from President Donald Trump. Well, sweeping cuts are in the tax bill, including how students are able to borrow and pay off student loans. And chief political correspondent Andy Weber explains why advocates are now sounding the alarm.
We have a chance to seize on a generational opportunity to help put more Americans back on the path to the American dream.
Republican lawmakers celebrating Thursday as the House passed the final version of President Donald Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. Within that legislation, major changes to student loans. Over the next few years, only 2 repayment options will be offered: a standard plan and a repayment assistance plan. In the repayment assistance option, an individual would now have to be making payments for at least 30 years to qualify for forgiveness. The bill also places caps on how much can be borrowed for graduate and medical school.
And we also give universities and colleges and community colleges and tax-paying universities the opportunity to counsel students against taking on debilitating debt.
But advocates insist these changes to student debt programs will ultimately harm borrowers and make college less accessible to different and diverse populations.
You also see first-generation students also being impacted by this. They will no longer be able to have some of the Pell Grants that they traditionally receive.
Jalen Herbin with North Carolina-based Center for Responsible Lending says the changes focus too heavily on borrowers, that those who voted for the bill don't understand the financial barriers that exist in modern education. What should lawmakers be focusing on to address when it comes to student loans?
They need to look at the policies that are already in place and let's say, how can we sit down together collectively, hear and listen to the borrowers, put them at the forefront and not put the institutions at the forefront.
Andy Weber, Queen City
A
News.
new lawsuit filed by migrant advocacy groups accuses the Trump administration and ICE agents of targeting people based on color during deportation operations, claiming Southern California is under siege. Los Angeles and its surrounding areas are seeing an uptick in ICE operations under the Trump administration in a crackdown on illegal immigration. For months, ICE has conducted raids in the area, resulting in hundreds of undocumented migrants rounded up and detained, according to DHS press releases. Now the Trump administration is being sued by the ACLU of Southern California, among other immigrant advocacy groups, suggesting ICE agents are racially profiling Californians as part of their operations. The suit says individuals with brown skin are approached or pulled aside by unidentified federal agents suddenly and with a show of force and made to answer questions about who they are and where they're from. The complaint says the ICE operations look less like lawful arrests and more like brazen midday kidnappings. The Department of Homeland Security is pushing back against the lawsuit's allegations, with a spokesperson giving the New York Times a statement saying these type of smears are designed to demonize and villainize our brave ICE law enforcement. This kind of garbage has led to a more than 700% increase in the assaults on enforcement officers. DHS enforcement operations are highly targeted, and officers do their due diligence. This lawsuit marks another escalation over ICE raids in and around LA. On Monday, the Trump administration sued Los Angeles over its sanctuary city status, stating that it's hindering federal immigration enforcement. LA Mayor Karen Bass responded to that litigation, calling it an all-out assault against Los Angeles, saying federal agents need to get out of the city. The legal battles playing out in Southern California reflect a broader divide between federal and local leaders over how immigration policy should be handled.
The number of homeless students in California is up nearly 10%, but the reasons why may not be what you think. The state's Department of Education says there are more than 230,000 homeless students in California. That's up from the more than 210,000 the year before and the 187,000 the year before that. Now, part of the increase could be due to a bill that passed in 2021 aimed at helping educators see the signs of homelessness. That bill also required schools to designate liaisons, making sure students can receive support services. Another reason for the increase could be the ongoing homeless crisis in the state. Nearly 25% of all homeless people in America live in California, and that number went up 3% in the last year. A new poll reveals Americans continue to feel less patriotic as time goes on. The Gallup poll shows only 58% of American adults say they are very or extremely proud to be an American. That's down 9 percentage points from a year ago and 5 points below the prior low from 2020. It's also down from the 87% who answered affirmatively when the first poll was taken in 2002. Morris Fiorina, political science professor at Stanford, told Straight Arrow News this.
I think you can't point to any particular single factor. I think there are a lot of things at work. Quite honestly, the government hasn't been doing really well for 20 years or so. We had a major recession that took 10 years to get out of. We've had some foreign policy. You wouldn't exactly call them, well, the Afghan withdrawal was sort of a disaster, but we've had sort of a lack of foreign policy successes.
There was also a major divide among party lines, with only 36% of Democrats saying they were very or extremely proud. Only 53% of independents felt very or extremely proud. Meanwhile, 92% of Republicans say they feel very or extremely proud, a number that's remained high since the poll began. Straight Arrow News also spoke with two Americans on opposite sides of the political spectrum.
Because I think it kind of depends on the category of America, like which facet of America are we talking about, right? If we're talking about with how we're treating other humans right now, not feeling super patriotic. There are things to be proud of. We certainly have it better than a lot of other places in the world, but we certainly have a long way to go to be where we were decades ago.
You can live in a big city where there's a bunch to do, or you can live out in the countryside where the cost of living is pretty low. As far as feeling safe in my day to day, being able to carry a pistol legally, or local police, our military. I'd say I'm proud to still be an American.
The biggest gap was between generations. 83% of the silent generation, or people born before 1946, said they are very or extremely proud to be an American. Now that's compared to only 41% of Gen Z, or people born between 1997 and 2012.
With the younger generation, all you have is what's recent, whereas the older generation remember the good times as well as the bad times. The older, farther back you go. I mean, when I was growing up, everybody had been a World War II vet. That they were very patriotic. That's not that way now. Nobody's left in that generation. So, I think probably just younger people much more reactive to the current affairs and have less memory of longer term developments.